Welcome to the Lessons from Your Hairstylist podcast, where we uncover and leverage your unique beauty and personal style. I'm your host, Sarah Cruz, a beauty industry educator and hairstylist with 30 years experience. This show is dedicated to providing you with insights and practical advice for living a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Experience that special stylist-client bond right here as we dive into conversations with experts in beauty and wellness. Here, you'll gain valuable tips on personal style and self-care to empower your journey. Join me to unlock the secrets to living beautifully well while elevating your lifestyle, mind, body, and spirit. Your appointment is now, so have a seat and get ready for transformation. Well, hello and welcome to the Lessons from Your Hairstylist podcast. I'm your host and hairstylist friend, Sarah Cruz, and I just wanted to bring on somebody today who I've known for several years. When I first started this podcast, one of the big things to me was I wanted to bring on people who, you and I can learn from and get value out of. And this person is someone who was always in the back of my mind. I always thought of him because I just knew he would be fascinating. And the reason why is because he has been my therapist. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long episode, but it probably could be. But nice. Brendan has been around the bend with me quite a few times, and the value that I have gotten from our sessions together has just honestly been life-changing in so many ways. And I'm so excited that he's here. He's a licensed clinical therapist. He has his own practice here in East Nashville, Tennessee called Session Psychology. And he does all the things. He's a dad, he's a husband. He is somebody who has a very, very full life and probably a lot of people trying to bend his ear all the time. So we are very lucky to have him on. So every time I have sat down with Brendan in a session, I have walked away feeling transformed in some way. And that's my hope for this episode as well. And so this podcast, as you know, is really about transformation in your life. Little things that we can do every day, little actions that we can take, little things that we can do for ourselves. And I think that getting your headspace in the right place is very, very important for that. I think everything really comes from kind of what's going on between your ears and how that works into everything else in our everyday life, how happy we are, how fulfilled, and how well we're able to live. And Brendan, he has helped me with that. So Brendan McCarthy, thank you, sir, for coming on. I am so happy that you're here.
It's so honored by your kind words. Thank you.
Well, it's been a while since I've seen you. I feel like
I know.
Probably
it has
need
been.
to get back in there.
When did we meet? Do you remember?
I think it's been probably a year and a half, maybe.
But
Not.
I mean, originally, when did we originally meet? Was it post-COVID?
3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
It was like right around the start of COVID, right? Or was it before that?
I don't even remember. I know our first one was
You and I are the wrong people to be asking this question.
No, we don't know. Well,
we have no idea. Yeah.
Well, time's a blur since COVID. So
it's true.
I remember that our first session, I was actually sitting in my car.
Wow. Yeah. It was virtual. So it probably was during COVID then.
It could have been.
Because it was probably, virtual because of that.
So that was the first time that I met you, was over my phone sitting in my car.
Yeah. And you guys referred to me via a client of yours. Who is a client of mine.
Yes.
Yeah. I love when that happens.
I love that because, again, that's sort of what this podcast is about. It's about bringing those relationships that I have with clients and other stylists behind the chair and those things that we share and bringing them out onto this platform. So this is like so perfect that it happened that way.
Yeah.
She turned me on to you and then I found you, and then it's been really life-changing for me.
Yeah. And then we also realized that our spouses knew each other.
Yes.
Right? Like that was sort of the other behind the scenes that was like, oh, whoa, this is kind of wild. That like from their own whatever music world knew each other too. And so small world.
It was. And then that just added that whole other layer to our sessions together because
Yeah.
it's just kind of funny when you've got that also those personal ties and those connections
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I definitely have a sense of your world already, being married to somebody who's also like in a similar industry. So I could relate with you even on that personal level too. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it having a spouse who, you know, music industry stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know you do. Your wife is an amazing artist, an entertainer herself.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you get that world. You really counsel people who are creatives, who are in some sort of a creative field. Being in that world yourself, do you find that you work more with people who are artists or creators?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think because I have such a familiarity with that world that I think because of that, I I do get to sort of bring in a maybe unique lens because I know their world inside and out on so many different levels. And so when people who are, and I would say it's creatives professionally, like I think that's like they are using some expression of that professionally. Like that tends to be a lot of the niche that I work with. And because of that, we can move pretty far, pretty fast. Just because as soon as they come in the door, I already have a pretty good sense of a bit of their world, and I think, especially for artists, that's a little can be a lot of the disconnect in the mental health world is they don't want to go see another doctor midtown in like a medical park. They don't want that. That's not the thing that they're after. If they are going to do therapy and going to enter into it, they want somebody, I think, who there's a little bit more of a relational, a little bit more of a framework to what we're doing. There's a familiarity there where I am somebody who's of their world. They're not coming here and feeling like they're in this foreign place and they're visiting. They feel like, oh, this feels like home too. This feels like another extension of that. And I think that's the thing that people appreciate
Yeah.
and want. So I think that's why I've been able to kind of carve out my little spot in that world.
Well, that's very you because I noticed from the first time I was there, both settings that you have been in since I've known you
Yeah. Yeah.
have
The two different locations. Yeah.
felt very artistic in some way, creative. They felt like a very comfortable, very casual space, very curated space. I know the first one that I came to, I think it was an old church over there in East Nashville. And
Yeah.
I loved all the experiential things that we did. First of all, I loved your approach to
Yeah.
the to the sessions that we had, but also it's the setting, it's the entire picture. So when I went there and it's this old church, there will be times where you might say like, let's get out of here, let's go sit on the front steps, like let's go out
Yeah.
and take a walk. We weren't just confined to the space. We weren't just you're sitting over by a desk and I'm sitting in a chair and it's just very clinical. It wasn't any of that. It was very much just like how we're talking now
Yeah.
and doing some different experiential things too to work some things out in a tangible way, but also we would get up and move. It
Yeah.
was getting up and moving. And that was a very helpful way for me as a creative and as an artist in so many ways to be able to get those things out physically and to work those things out in that way. Was that something that you brought originally as far as your background when you decided to go into your field?
Yeah, absolutely. It very much that is the way that I do my best learning is by experiencing things. I mean, I was a kid who I hated school. I couldn't tell you sitting in a classroom and learning that way where it was just like one teacher sitting up front and it was like you're just listening, maybe talking a little bit. I just did not do any learning that way. But the one day that I went on a field trip, I could tell you about that day. Like that was the day that I was fully engaged. I was immersed in, like, I was moving, getting on the bus, getting to the museum. I was really talking with my friends about, oh my gosh, what do you think this is happening here? And there was like this full body experience. And I, I, that's the part that sticks in my mind. I remember that now because of that. So if we're trying to do effective therapy and we're trying to get people to fully integrate and remember and be able to do real transformation, real growth, then I think that traditional method of coming in for 50 minutes and we just listen and talk, and you sit on the couch and I sit in my chair, and as soon as the hour is up, you stand up and walk out, and that's the amount. I just don't think it's the environment that I do my best learning in, and I don't feel alone in that. I feel like there are others like me and like you who would really benefit from that. And so by no means am I the originator or creator of experiential therapy. It's been something that's been going on for thousands of years. I just, here in Nashville and with sessions and with my clients, it was being able to really figure out how to make that work in private practice. I've also been connected to organizations and done some work for that. They do retreats and they do workshops and the on-sites of the world, and there's these amazing wellness retreat centers. But in terms of the how do I make that work in a private practice setting, like with one-on-one? And so that's been kind of part of the Brendan version of that, like making that, sort of distilling that to what I want it to be.
Well, I feel like you're a master at that. I know that every single session that I was ever in, there would be times where I would come in and say, you'd be like, so what, open
Yeah.
it up. What do you know?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really have anything to talk about today. And then,
Yeah.
and you said an hour, you were like, oh, you come in for an hour. No, I would have to come in for 2 hours. And if I
Yeah.
could have, if I could have spent $1 million and come in for, you know, two
Yeah.
months straight, not $1 million, but I
Oh,
mean,
totally. I
you
mean, it's
need
that expensive.
time. I,
Yeah.
it was like, I was just getting started in an hour. So
Yeah.
we would do maybe 2 hour sessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I felt like even on those days where I came in and I couldn't really think of anything, I just kind of, you were like, all right, so tell me. And you would just leave the space open for me to start in. And then you would sort of
Yeah.
point me in the direction that I needed to go. And at the end of the whole thing, I was just like, damn,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was great, and what I loved about the way that you operate is, and I think you told me this one time, you said people don't have time to come every week just on and on, and just there's just no end in sight, where it's like you don't ever seem to get anywhere. And I know I've been to therapy before, and for the people that are listening right now, they may have tried going to therapy before and thought, it just never does me any good. I go for an hour, I spend the money, nothing happens, and I
Yeah.
just keep going. And we never said, no, we we got some stuff nailed down.
We're working.
It's like
Yeah.
we were
We're
like,
working.
we're accomplishing some stuff today.
Yeah.
We're gonna hash some shit out. And that's what we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it, was because I felt like that was time well spent every time.
Yeah. I think the thing that you're talking about is, I think that that's a real piece that is missing from a lot of therapy practices. And I hear that a lot, what you just said, kind of anecdotally. I hear that from clients who have experienced other therapists, from other mental health professionals, where there can be this sense of coming in and, okay, yes, I understand that this is a space where I'm going to be able to talk about hard things, and I'm going to get to, like, share my real authentic feelings, but I don't know if there's a direction, right? I don't know if there's, like, an actual true north. Like, what are we trying to get to? What are we trying to accomplish? Like, is there a main goal in all of this that's connected to the thing that I am feeling, which is whatever version of this, like, unrest is that's going on in me? there's something in me that was big enough that felt like I want to talk to somebody about this. Something is happening in my life. And instead of just having an open space where it's like, well, let's just explore and talk about all of that. Yes, that's part of it. But really, I want you to know that like we are trying to get to this spot over here. And so everything that we do is going to be in the service of ultimately like whatever this goal is out here that we're trying to get to, we're going to work towards it. And that goal is a goal that you get to set. And I get to help in that process too, you know, but we're going to do some work. Like if you're coming in and you're paying the money that you're paying, you know, I think we want to feel like, what did I accomplish today? Like, what did we do? And I want to be able to see that. And I want to be able to tell my friend that. And I want to be able to. So I always have that as a true north in terms of knowing exactly that there is a bigger thing that we are trying to get to. And we are going to do this body of work to get there. And I think people really appreciate that. You know, I think that that's the thing that feels a lot less like, well, how did that make you feel? That
Oh,
people want more. People want
I've
more.
heard that so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and as a patient or a client, you seek somebody out because exactly what you said, you know, there's something. You need the professional to tease it out and to give
Yeah.
you the direction. You go
Yeah.
because you need help, but you don't have
Yeah.
the training to know how to help yourself. That's why you go to somebody else.
That's right.
And I think many times people have had this experience where they've gone in, and I've had it myself many times where it's kind of like the therapist will say, yeah, that makes sense. I see how you could feel that way. And I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck, you know, like
Yeah.
where are we going with this? I mean, I need some help.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think too, right now in this period of time that we're in, I know every period of time that humans are in, we feel like, oh my God, there's so much happening. It's overwhelming. There's so much going on that it can almost feel like this heaviness on top of everything else from just living like your day-to-day life. And I think maybe it's pretty common for many of us to feel not necessarily depressed, but maybe a little bit just numb,
Yeah.
or there's just something underlying where it's just this heaviness and you don't know what it is. And that's where you really need for somebody to help you,
Yeah.
because whatever is causing, I would imagine, that underlying sort of just gray, it's got to be different for everybody. And so it can't just be a one size fits all, which is why I feel like it's so helpful to see somebody like you who, yeah, will leave the space open for you to talk about how you feel, but also can help you get down to it. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, like, why would you come if you couldn't? You're looking for help. So,
Yeah.
can you talk about some ways that you sort of pick out, or you help people come to that thing that's in there, that little kind of like pea under all the stack of mattresses of like what's causing the pain? How do you help people get to that?
That's a big question. That's a big question. I don't know if I'm going to have a good answer for that. But I think that term that I use, unrest, I think is a pretty good one to sort of encapsulate that. I think we do arrive for different people and at different spots and different timing in their life. We get to a spot where the strategy that I have picked to do my life, the ways that I show up, the relationships that I have, the choices that I make, the professional decisions I make, the family decisions, that requires a certain set of, it requires a strategy for you to navigate your life. You kind of have these are the things that I value. These are the things that I care about. And I think for most of us, we arrive at a spot where the strategy that I've picked runs its course. And it's not working anymore. The ways that I've told myself about these decisions that I'm making, the stories that I tell myself about my marriage or about my professional life, all of those ways that I've adapted and moved and I've gotten bigger in this room or funnier in this room or gotten better at this thing. Eventually those adaptations and that strategy that we've kind of picked out it stops working. And we get to this spot where all of a sudden that the noise of that unrest is too loud. It's too disruptive. It's something that I'm thinking about all of the time. And it's something that usually by the time I think they're coming in for therapy, all of the ways too that they've tried to turn down that noise by way of kind of medicating or coping, or, okay, I got to work less, or, okay, I got to do this thing more, or I start drinking a little more, I'm going to change my diet, or, all the different ways that we cope, those have also kind of run their course. And so they arrive at this place where it's like, this feels like an inside job. This feels like something that I'm going to need to kind of go in here to figure out. And then all of these external things will sort of follow suit.
I can relate to that so much.
Yeah.
It's when you're saying that you've developed these strategies for your life and just how you operate. And there does come a time where you wake up and you think, I could see that what got me here is not going to get me there. I can't continue this. I can't, this is not working. And it does come to you where you just think, now what?
Yeah. And I think that's the part that we get to kind of figure out together in therapy, is being able to, one, figure out what have the strategies been that you've been using. But at the end of the day, what is the thing that you are after? Like, what is the thing that is so disruptive? What is the thing that's kind of like coming into conflict inside? And many times we don't know the answer to that, because I don't know how to articulate that this thing happens every time my husband walks into a room, or this thing happens every time there's some work drama. So being able to talk about the things that create the unrest, and then kind of beginning to, that's the part where I think a therapist can be really, really helpful, is being able to understand and connect that to the greater story of self, the greater structure of your value and worth in the world, your meaning, the bigger why, the purpose of why you wake up in the morning and get out of bed. Being able to understand kind of the greater narrative, the ways that these adaptations have kind of stopped serving you, and then being able, I think, ultimately to get back to the truer version of really who you are, the design of who you are. I think my true north with clients, if I get lost in the chaos of a certain narrative or different circumstances or whatever, is ultimately helping clients uncover their most authentic design of who they are. And that's something that I don't know when they walk in, of what that design is. So that's also gets to be part of the journey of like, let's figure out who that is. Let's figure out who you were before the world started telling you who you needed to be.
I remember you said that to me one time, and that was one of the things that we did. Was we went back to that place where you were brand new in the world, and you said, just go back to that place, who you were before the world basically just started shitting all over you.
Yeah, kicking the shit out of you. Yeah.
Yeah. And once I did that and I was able to sort of reset, and like you said, to find that true north, I think and I can remember that day, and I could see me doing that experience, and how much that changed everything for me just in that short session that we had.
Yeah.
But when there is this unrest that you're talking about, and there's this something underlying, and you realize something's not working, but you don't know what it is, could it be that people don't know really where they're operating from, as far as they don't know like who their true authentic self is, in order to know what their purpose could possibly be? It's almost like there is no true north. And so you've got no compass, and you're just sort of directionless, just at loose ends. And it's a frustrating, overwhelming place to be. I feel like it could cause procrastination. It could cause, all of the things that happen to us when we're perfectionism, all of those things that we get wrapped up in. and nothing's working is maybe because you've never been able to get to the heart of who you
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
and how you want to authentically live. I think
Yeah.
that's why that was such a huge deal for
Yeah.
me, was because I
Yeah.
got to know who I really was in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And then I had a place to operate from.
And I think people don't, you're exactly right, Sarah. Like, people don't even know that that's the right question to be asking. They don't even know when they're coming in what they need or where we need to be headed. So, in a sense, some of the first sessions that we get to do is let me at least begin to tell you all of the furniture that's in the room. Like, let me begin to tell you everything that's accessible to you and everything that at the end of the day you have accessible in here. All of the different sources of data that we have. You're right. Many of us, we kind of just go off my thinking. Like, that's my source of data is, I guess there's, okay, so man, I feel all this unrest. I feel all this shit that's happening in my life. And the only thing that I know to look at and even be able to do anything about is like, look at my personality, right? Look at like my character, like what people think of me. Look at my own thinking patterns. Like, what keeps me up at night? What are the things that I think about? Beyond that, we don't have many structures in place to know even what to look at. Like, people will come in and they'll say, I want to do a big deep dive on my personality, like why I'm an introvert, why da da da. And that your personality and how your adult self and kind of how you show up in the world, that's one big piece of furniture that I get to help put in the room for people, is being able to understand that actually your personality is not who you are. It's not who you were before all of this happened, before life started giving you the childhood that it gave you, the junior high experience that you had, the relationships and in and out of that doesn't speak to any part of your authentic design, but more. There's a bigger piece of furniture and a bigger source of data here that's important for you to know that you have access to. And I think even that is like a light bulb for people, being able to go, oh, okay, so actually my thinking isn't quite as important, or it's not the only source of data that I have. There's lots of other pieces of information that I have accessible to me. I just haven't been using it. I didn't even know that I could. And so I think being able to just add in more things into the room that people understand, like, oh, okay, now at least I know the landscape. I know where we need to go, what parts of this are broken, what parts of this need attending to. As opposed to when you first walk in, there's just this sense of like, it's all overwhelming and I don't even know where to go with it or what needs fixing. I think that's the gift of therapy, is that you at least get to sit with somebody who hopefully gets to sit there with you and go, this is the part that needs fixing.
That's what we're looking for.
Right? Like,
This is what
this
we're
is
looking for.
the thing where we need to zero in on. And I think there's lots of old school therapy model is that, in a sense, that's not our job to do that. Only the client can determine that. You're not the expert in, there's lots of this old school thinking that I think is ready to kind of die off a bit. And I think people are after a little more of like, no, let's do like life on life, relational, and tell me what I'm looking at. Like, just be direct about that. People so appreciate when they can receive that, because they're like, great, got it. Okay. Now we know where to go. But that requires something from the therapist, where they need to be someone who is confident and competent in that. They've done all of their own work themselves to be able to know, no, I've got an idea of where we're headed, so you can follow me here in this part. But for a lot of therapists, they haven't, and so they don't feel that sense of quite, I think, a permission to be able to offer that to clients and be able to go there. So that's why what's unique, I would say, about our practice here and our team and our therapist is that it's all people who feel very competent and confident to be directive in the room, and that's okay and that's good. But you're kind of risking, you got to go there with your whole self. and be able to feel okay about that. And that's not every therapist, but it's definitely all the therapists that are here.
Yeah, because you have a group there of people who
Yeah.
uh, sort of operate in the way that your practice
Yeah.
is as its foundational, I guess, approaches. But can you tell? I know because there's two things that are coming up for me. It's the personality part, and it's also the background of the therapist and the work that they've done with themselves. Can you
Yeah.
just give us a little bit of an idea into Brendan, maybe some of the things that you've had to recognize or work on in yourself that have helped you to get to the place where you are so effective in helping your clients, your patients, and tell us a little bit about your personality,
Yeah.
maybe how that was shaped by who you are and that work that you had to do.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the saying that, you know, wounded healers make the best healers, that kind of thing?
I believe that.
I would say the only thing that qualifies me is that I've had a painful history, and so I've been able to navigate my own life in a way over the last 40 plus years that I've gotten to see some of the things that have been effective, some of the things that have been ineffective. And I think being able to offer that fully to clients. I grew up and it was sort of the tale as old as time, divorced parents, blended family drama where it was this constant, it was like this kind of chaotic adult life that was like, what do we do with the kids? And like the kids kind of felt that, where it was like, we're getting shuffled back and forth. So home for me was not really a safe place. It wasn't a place where I was going to walk into the door and feel valued and feel like, man, the most important thing going on here right now is you and your life and what's happening at school and what's happening. That wasn't the case for me. It was kind of survival for the adults in my life. And so the kids were kind of left to fend for themselves in a way. So had I not had, I think, really, really impactful and significant, really important mentors, coaches, teachers. I even did counseling when I was really little, like through my divorce. I remember that was one thing my parents kind of got right was, hey, it was this older woman, and I would go in there when I was 8 years old and talk about dreams that I had, and draw pictures for her. But I got to see the power of somebody intersecting with your story who is just a support person for you, who has no other interests involved other than just loving you and helping you. I got to see how important that was personally for my own life. And so I think there was something very early on for me that was like, I want to be that person to some degree when I get older. I had every step of the way. There were really, really beautiful people in my life who helped me. And I had to find all of that kind of outside of the house. And so I knew that, again, that was going to be my world to some degree when I got older. And so by the time I was, in my undergrad and really starting to make some choices about what I want to do, it just continually kept coming back to this healing profession and wanting to be. And like, I just have this like insatiable curiosity about why we do the things that we do. I have so many more questions than I do answers. And that to me feels like that's the compelling part of life to me, is this big why. And then you like zoom in and you see people and how we're all so different based off our histories. Like for me, I remember really, really early on, I mean, being a teenager and just being so fascinated by that process.
Mm.
So all of my degrees were in sociology and psychology and communication. Like it was all relational and all people, just the study of people. So by the time I was ready to really enter into professional route, then I knew I was like therapist. Like that was always going to kind of be the thing that I knew was going to be the role that really fit who I am best. And it just so happened that my personality, I'm definitely more of an introvert. I'm definitely like um, my wife and I explain our dynamic is, we walk into a room, we walk into a party of 100 people, and she's going to meet everybody at that party and could probably tell you their name. I am going to meet one person at that party, but I could tell you their whole story, like by the end of it. And I think that like that's kind of the difference. And that's always been my personality. And so that just fits for this. I'd say those are a couple requirements to be an effective therapist that you need to have, and those things that had been developed in me. So I've just felt like it was kind of a perfect alignment kind of situation.
Well, I could see it's a perfect alignment. And you explaining that puts all of the puzzle pieces together to where I could see what I'm looking at now, who I'm talking to now, and why you are so effective in what it is that you do in helping people. Why a session with you is worth 30 sessions with, and not everybody's different. I understand that every therapist is different, and I'm not shitting on other therapists or the way that people do that. I think there's a good fit for everybody.
Yeah.
For me, one session with you was worth any other that I've ever had, all of the others combined in my life. But I think, again, it's about finding the right fit and people that you relate to and someone
Yeah.
relate to you.
Yeah. And I think the timing part of it is important too. We're all at this sort of different stage of change within our life. And maybe had you met me 10 years ago, and you're like, hey, I want to get help with this, maybe at that point it wouldn't have been the best fit, but once the timing is and folks are ready to sort of do the thing that we're kind of be doing in the work that we're going to be doing, which is a little bit more, I would say, of like surgery as opposed to coming into a doctor and getting cough drops for a cough or something like practical. Here's 10 ways that I can do this. Like, and it's not knocking that. All of that is great, and we need all of that. But that's not my brand of like, hey, let's really enter into this bigger story here and what we're looking at, and let's move the needle.
Yeah.
Let's do the surgery that's required, But you have to be a patient who's ready for surgery, and that's not everybody, I think when I was, in my young 20s and I wasn't ready to talk about the bigger story. I didn't even have enough self-awareness to know what was what. If it's the right alignment and it's the timing, and it's the fit versus the timing and the fit, then it's like the thing can happen that happened with you and I, which is like we can really do some like awesome transformative stuff.
It has definitely been transformative for me, and I need to come back if you're not so busy that you couldn't
Come
take
on.
as a
Doors always open.
Are there any alternate types of therapy that you have been learning about? Is there anything new coming out right now? I mean, I guess there are things like this EMDR therapy. There's like, you hear people talk about psychedelics, like all of these sort of like alternative therapies. I know that people who are listening could be curious and may want to hear your thoughts about some of those approaches as well. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's a place for all of them. I really do. And I think based off how people, again, are showing up and the timing of their life, it's like we just need different things where we each have such our own unique psyche and such our own unique spirit. And things that light you up might not light up, your son. They might not light up my wife. Like that we each have our own unique grid in that because of that, all of these different modes of therapy, I really do think there is a place for each and every one of them. I think as long as you're asking, I have a lot of interest in the psychedelic part of healing in terms of specifically trauma and how that is going to be. I think that is where we're headed. Like, I think that is something that is going to be so normalized in 100 years that we're going to look back at this as like, I think it was 2 years ago that the FDA approved psilocybin as like a treatment approach for legally, and Oregon was the first state, which is where I'm from originally. So maybe that's also why I have such an interest in it. It's my Oregon roots. But I mean, when you and I are doing our work, a massive, massive barrier to getting to enter into it is that you don't feel safe in the room. You don't feel safe. And I'm not saying you, Sarah, I'm saying you as the client. They don't feel a sense of, I can be my authentic, vulnerable, I can share everything. Even I can share about the parts of me that feel so painful and so confronting. Like, what if this is true? What if I am the problem? What if the reason my dad didn't actually show up in my life is because of like these big, big questions that our ego, we have all of these self-protective measures that won't let us even ask those painful questions because it's too, like, the truth is seemingly too much of a perceived threat. So I'll just sort of like shut that off. Here's the things I will talk about. What psychedelics do, in a sense, which I think is so fascinating, and we're learning more and more about it, like in the mental health community, is they lower all of that self-protection. So now, with a trained therapist, you essentially have access to all of the like really ooey gooey, vulnerable parts, but in a sense, the parts that need the healing, that need the intervention. And so it's a fast track to be able to lower our self-protection and able to ultimately build our self-identity, our worth. But I will work with a client for years where their self-protection, their ability to actually give themselves or give me access to their most wounded parts, years, those walls will stay up. And I using all the tools that I have at my disposal, but being able to let somebody in behind those walls, maybe a really painful experience when you were a kid, maybe, again, there's so many different versions of it. But what mushrooms and psychedelics are doing is basically like, hey, we know that part of your brain that is kind of overriding and it is keeping those walls up. And we have access to that part of your brain to be able to actually lower that self-protection so that we can get to the authentic part. So for somebody who's a clinician and somebody who's like, I'm wanting to get access to that part to heal it, to help, that is such a evocative idea that like we have found essentially a part of the pharmacy that we can employ that can like take those chemicals and get them to the right place.
That is just fascinating. Just
So
the way
fascinating.
that you described it, and you've said it so perfectly. That is a very exciting prospect
Yeah.
we could explore.
You walk in, like when you walked into the office and like, remember when you said, going back to that place of who I was before the world started telling me who I needed to be and who I couldn't be. The moment that you, Sarah, connected with that place of like, oh yeah, there is an original design to me. There is this part of me that is pure and untouched and powerful and is the most authentic self. And the moment that you connected to that and you were able to go, holy shit, if I have access to this part of me, to this, my true sense of self, then I can show up so confidently in the world and I know exactly who I am. And I stop caring about what others think of me or managing people's expectations of me, or because there was a time when I didn't care about that stuff. I have to go back to when I was 5 years old to think about that time. But there was a time when I didn't care about that stuff. And again, what these psychedelics are doing is it's giving you, it's like streamlining that process of going, you're going to get in tune with the actual authentic design of who you are. And all the constructs and stuff that's around that, it lowers it all and like kind of like melts it all away. Yeah, but it's why people, they do psychedelics and they're like, I saw God. They have all these different ways of kind of, I think, saying the same thing, which is like finally in pure alignment with with me, with self. There was no trying. It was just being. And
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of like, like I'm just good. I don't have to try to be something else.
Yeah.
That's that's a really exciting premise for therapy and being able to do that. So in terms of the alternate types, that's the thing that I'm like very I have my eye very close on it and am excited for where that can go.
I'm so glad I asked that question because I'm just fascinated now by your answer and the way
Yeah.
that you explained that, and to learn how it might work and the possibilities. I know when I did that particular exercise with you, that was the transformation, but it wasn't. I went there. I didn't feel like there was a lot of resistance to me going there. I just never knew to go there before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I was found that I was not interested in looking at that person, that early person, but I found that out in that experience because I was able to go there. But then I realized sort of the whys behind that. And I remember having this experience where you said, take that person that you were and talk to this person that you are now. It was like we had two different chairs.
Oh yeah.
And you said talk to your future self and say, and I might not be getting this right. This is how I remembered it. You
Yeah.
said, what would you want to say to this person?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember saying, you're not at all what I thought you were going to turn out to be.
Mm,
And I don't remember everything about what I said back and forth, but then the younger person would say to me now, why are you not interested in me? Why do you not pay attention to me? Why do you not listen to what I need, And
yeah.
for some reason, I said, I'm not really interested in you. I don't really care about these sort of childish things, or I don't want to play and I don't want to spend that time with you. I don't really want, and it was sort of heartbreaking
Yeah.
that I didn't want to love that person.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I realized that that was really what I had needed all along. I'm probably not making sense, but it was very transformative because
Oh, it makes perfect sense to
in
me.
that
Yeah.
moment, that was the time where I realized how I was going to operate going forward. And it was for the good and the protection of myself. So when people talk about self-love and it sounds like this abstract sort of concept that you see like on social media when you're scrolling through
Totally.
and it says self-love, doesn't really like sink in or resonate. It was in that moment that I did truly
Yeah.
love that person again. Now I was going to put that person first.
Yeah.
And I was going to operate in a totally different way. And that was the transformation because that
Yeah.
set out to affect everything else that I did from
Yeah.
that moment forward.
Yeah.
Somebody had not watched after or protected that early person, but now it was my time where I was going to rectify that situation and no longer be left to be last all the time. I wasn't going
That's
to be
right.
last all the time, not
Yeah.
cared for. I was going to be cared for because I
Yeah.
think we're given one person in this lifetime. We have children, we have spouses, we have people that we love, but there's one person we have in this lifetime to take care of, and it's us. It's our
Right.
own selves. As you wouldn't let anybody hurt your child, your children, wouldn't
Yeah.
let anyone hurt your wife. You wouldn't
That's
let
right.
anybody treat the people that you love the way that you are allowing people to treat you. Imagine if you're your own child. That was like the aha moment for me. And it's a real gift. So if people don't get a chance to go there on their own, I can understand why having a resource like psychedelics would be such a
Yeah.
valuable thing to have.
Yeah. And I don't know if you would have gotten there had you not embodied that person. Like we can conceptually talk about it. Like imagine, your younger self, but it's like, it's a whole different thing when you're like, no, no, there's an empty chair. I want you to get out of the chair that you're in and sit in that chair as
Mhm.
the older, as adult Sarah. And for you to, if the fact that you got to embody and say to her, I don't really care about you.
Yeah.
Like that was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's true. Like
Yeah.
that has been the way I have been operating is
Mhm.
I have done in a sense the same thing that every other adult did to her, which
Yes.
is like, bye, you're on your own. I don't
Yeah.
really care about you, which is the same thing that happened to me. Hey, we're surviving out here on our own. Good luck, 5-year-old.
Right.
It's a really hard, shitty world,
Yeah.
you know? And to go like, wait, what? Now I'm like, I have the ability now as an adult. I don't have to do that again.
Yeah.
I don't have to abandon that kid anymore. I have all of this power now. I have all of these tools. I have all of these things that I can actually intersect into my story and go, I got you. And we don't need to go through all of the shit that we have been going through. And we don't get that wake up call that we are just repeating the exact same pattern as every other adult in our life, but now we're doing it to ourselves.
And I remember in that moment that that little person said to the adult, if you don't love me and you don't care about me, and if you're not going to take care of me, who's going to?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it was in that moment that I thought, well, that's right. Who is
That's
going
right.
to? Nobody.
Yeah.
That was the moment where I was like, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard, but also the greatest gift, because it was in that moment that I thought to myself, nobody has cared for this person.
Yeah.
And it's been my job. And
Yeah.
now I went from I didn't care about the person,
Right.
wasn't interested, to now I was fully invested in that.
Yeah.
That's where the experience of going through practices like that, that's one of the reasons why that was so helpful to me. One of the reasons too I why, and I've told people about that, but one of the reasons too why wanted to have you on, so that people could see that, there are other ways, if they've already been to therapy, that they could possibly have some breakthroughs in their
Yeah.
path and in their journey. You might
Yeah.
just not have found the right person yet.
Yeah. 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 Totally. And I think that's one of those. It's one of those situations where it comes back to. I think people just they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
They don't know that when you step into a car, this steering wheel, it actually like turns side to side. Like you can do a lot with the steering wheel. Like people don't know. If I didn't know walking into a therapy office the kind of work that was actually accessible to me, I would just look at a steering wheel and be like, it's just this circle. It's like it's the thing that we don't know until we get somebody that can get into the room with us and show us how all of these different parts work and exactly what we're looking at and how much capability there is with all of these different functions that we have. That's the part that is a bummer for me, that people have had so many experiences that like continues to feel limited,
Mm, mm.
and feel like it's one thing. And the more that we have things like psychedelics or EMDR, it's like yet another tool that's going like, do you know what we have the capability of being able to do in your growth and healing? You know, my dad said to me, we were talking about mushrooms, like of course, like this old hippie, an Oregon dad, but he's like, mushrooms, they're not a door, they're a window. Like it's a window. I can see into something that I normally would not have access or be able to see. It's not a door in the sense of like, yeah, you do psychedelics and have therapy and then you walk through it and you're never the same again. You're like this whole transformed person. But no, but you can finally see it. You can finally see what you need to get after. You can finally see, and then comes the work. I mean, you showing up, you didn't show up and it was like you were fixed. It was like you showed up and you were committed to tell me where we need to go, tell me what we need to do, and I'm in. Like I'm going to give some time to this. And this is important to me. And this is going to go at the top of my list of like, I want to get this part right because I know all of these other parts out here are suffering as a result of it. So if I get this part right, then watch all the fruit from the trees go.
Yeah.
But I got to get down to the roots to do that.
Got to get down to the roots. That's it.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Hey, we have been talking for quite some time, and I know that you have got other things to do today, and I don't want to keep you. So I want to do one last little exercise. This is something that I have just started, and it's called Cut It or Keep It.
Yes.
Concept behind Cut It or Keep It, me as a hairstylist, we make the decision every day with somebody's hair, right? It's like dead. Could be dead, could be worth saving, could not be worth saving, could be something you want to work with, could be something you just need to get rid of. So that's the concept behind Cut It or Keep It.
Cut it or keep
So
it. I
I
love
want to
it.
ask you, cut it or keep it. I have a few little concepts here. We talked about a couple of them, but
Yeah.
cut it or keep it, teletherapy.
Keep it.
Keep it.
I was skeptical of it before COVID. And then once COVID hit and we were all forced to do the screen and to do virtual, I saw that you can do powerful stuff even via teletherapy.
Yeah.
And I had to experience it myself to be a believer in it. But even the thing that you and I are talking about right now, which is go back to the original and put in a chair and be able to have that moment, that can even be facilitated through a screen.
Yeah.
And I've seen it and I've experienced it. And so teletherapy, I'm in.
Okay.
Keep it.
We did, that was our first session. And I remember that day you were kind of like, I'll do this sometimes, but I feel like it's good if we get together, which I do think there's value in getting together.
Oh, totally.
But yeah.
It's what, like, for sure the superior experience is always going to be in person because there's that energy that's in the room. You can see,
There is.
but if it's cut it or keep it, I think I'm still going to keep it.
Perfect. We just talked about this. We went off on a whole thing, but the use of psychedelic substances is a form of therapy.
Yeah, keep it.
And EMDR therapy, that's something we didn't talk about as much, but it stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. Do you know anything about that? Tell us just a little bit about that. Would you cut it or keep it?
I would definitely keep it. I'm giving you a lot of keep it's, I know, but okay. I am not EMDR certified, but somebody on my couple of the therapists on my team are. And there are moments with particular clients where that has been kind of the cutting edge thing in the last 10 years, where especially with trauma and memories, being able to reprocess painful memories. And so what they found in the eye desensitization, what's happening is that it's kind of like the psychedelics and being able to, how it's lowering our self-protection and enabling us to go to these painful spots. EMDR is kind of doing the same thing. And what they found is essentially there's different ways to do it, but your eyes are tracking a certain point, or they can do it with tapping on your arm. And what it's doing is it's almost replicating REM sleep. So when we go into that dreamlike state where we can kind of think about and process anything, all of my self-protection is down. What they have essentially found is a way to like fast track that. So we can kind of like get you into that state so that we can reprocess some of these painful memories. And so in the world of trauma, and it's like science. It's shown that it's like really, really effective in being able to do it. But I would say it's definitely a particular type of client, particular place in therapy for it. But for when those stars align, it's a home run.
You put a lot of clarification with that. It's cool that you've got some people in your group as well.
Yeah, and we probably once a month have people reaching out going specifically like, I want to do EMDR,
Oh,
and it's great. So then we get to kind of put them with a specific therapist who does that with them. So
cool. So keep it.
it's powerful. Keep it.
Great. All right. Next is Better Health and similar apps.
Yeah, it's so hard because we're actually just talking about this as a group of therapists, like with the advent of AI and everything's this faster pace and being able to have quicker accessibility, and it's hard not to be cynical about it and want to go, man, it's a lower brand of therapy. It's something that you're not doing the deeper work, but the truth is that I'm going to say keep it, because there have been people that they would never darken the doors of a therapy office. They would never even consider giving any attention to their mental health if it requires them coming into an office. Like that step is just like, that's not happening. But if I can jump on BetterHelp and I'm just in this texting thing with somebody who's 1,000 miles away, for whatever reason, that creates a conditions, environment of safety for them that enables them to actually do some good work.
How hard would it be to connect with the right person though on
That's the biggest feedback, is that people will go through 7 or 8 different people, and it's like it's so big and it's so much accessible to you that it's like you've got to be committed to hanging in there a little bit to find the right person. So people will go through 7 or 8 therapists before they find somebody that feels like kind of an okay fit.
right?
So
Something's better than nothing, I guess, though.
yeah, I think that's kind of I'd hate for that to be BetterHelp's catchphrase, but that's kind of how I think about it. BetterHelp, something's better than nothing. But I've seen I've heard a lot of people go, man, that's the thing that kind of saved my life. So
Wow, really?
yeah, I think it opened the door. It opened the door to people, that this group of people that they're not ready for therapy, but give me kind of, and I don't say this pejoratively at all, but give me kind of therapy light.
Mm.
Now I can drink that for a little, like, yes, okay. And then I think the hope would be that would then enter you into being able to do in person, or so. I think it's a step on the ladder for sure, and I don't know if it's a necessary one, but if it's between cutting it and keeping it, I think I'm still saying keep it.
Okay, gonna keep it. All right, next is using therapy techniques in everyday conversations with your family and friends.
My wife would say she oh, it would be so hard to be married to a therapist, because it's really hard not to want to talk about the things that in terms of like how we do relationships and what's quote unquote healthy and not healthy. I tell people that the healthier and healthier we get, I think the less and less we tolerate dysfunction. I think that's true. I think like around us we start to see dysfunction a little more. So all that to say, it's really, really hard not to. But I would say if there were a way to cut that and not have any therapy speak in it, I think it would probably be a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'll say it that way.
Next is never being done with therapy. Is it like lifelong? Should it go on forever? Does it need to? What do you think?
Yeah. If you lined up 100 therapists and asked them that same question, I think you would get 100 different answers. It is very much comes down to how, as the therapist, how you conceptualize what it is that we're doing and the change process. For me, I do really equate therapy to being kind of like an emotional gym. Like that is like, for whatever reason, that just works for me, where you want to go build your biceps, you want to get better abs, you want to get healthy, get on the treadmill, like go to the gym. You can do that. The more you go, the easier it will get, and the more you will see results. And you can, at some point, once you get to a certain level, you know, you probably don't need to be going 5 days a week. You know, you have built the muscle. It is there. Now, if you then never go, and if you know, it can kind of come back. So for me, I am kind of more in the camp, I would say, of, I mean, I don't want to say never being done with therapy, but I would say normalizing that it can be a integrated part of your life forever,
Yeah.
you know?
That makes sense.
Like, I don't think and I think you get the benefit of, in the same way that you never leave the gym and you're like, why did I do that? That was the worst decision.
Exactly.
You always walk away going like, oh, I feel better. And like, that was worth it. And I'm glad I went.
Yeah.
And so I view therapy a little more in that mode, where it's like, it's just the gym. Far be it for me to tell someone if they shouldn't be going to the gym. If it makes you feel good and it's a good part of your rhythm in your life. I have people who use this space in lots of different capacities. Like, that some that we're doing that kind of work where it's like we're putting somebody in a chair and it's big tectonic shifts beneath the surface. I have some people that it's just very, very good for their headspace to have a place to go once every month where they can just, for 1 hour, they can kind of process through their month, and they can use that time to just sort of have an outlet, have a place that they get reminded again, this touchstone of like what I should be caring about, who I am. Remind me again of all the furniture that's in the room accessible to me. So for people that want to do that, I love that, you know? And I never want there to be a time when it's like, well, you don't need therapy anymore. You don't need that for your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For them, they
I
would
remember
go, I, I do need it, and I do want
I remember our mutual friend, and the person who referred me to you
it. Yeah.
would say, I that would be why they would go.
Yeah.
That they would say to me, I go because it was more of that latter part of, it's kind of
Yes.
like, it's a thing that I do. I need it for
Yeah.
as an ongoing thing, and it supports it, and it supports them. And so yes, I've heard that as well. So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So
I mean,
hey,
I think about it too. It's like, I think it's like people are paying X amount of dollars a month to have this subscription or that, to Hulu, to whatever, these different apps. Like, we're paying for these services and for these things that make us happier throughout our month. And so why would I not pay for a service, that makes me happy, that I get to go to once a month and do this thing? It's like I just build that into my. So I think more and more that is how people are thinking about therapy. And I actually love that, because to me, that's how I think about it. And that feels helpful to me. It doesn't always need to be a space that's like what we're talking about, where it's like we're going into the deep waters of this and like that's all we do here. It's like, no, that's one thing we do here.
yeah, yeah. Last one is, we're all screwed up and everyone needs therapy. Or
Yeah.
the other part of that could be like, it all goes back to our childhood. We're all screwed up and everyone needs therapy.
We joke about like, will our kids need therapy? Like, as therapists, the people who we know the research, we know the things. And every single one of us is like, yes, that the hope is not keeping our kids out of therapy. The hope is setting them up in a way where they have enough money to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the joke, among us therapists, is like, let's just make sure they have enough money to afford it. Because I am this should be normalized. This shouldn't even be reserved for just having an office in East Nashville. Like, I wish we were doing this. I wish I was doing this in second grade. And having a space where it was like, okay, today we're going to talk about, all of the things we feel inside and how people in our life can let us down.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk, like, why is it not baked into our education system, knowing I've been using this example of all the furniture in the room, like knowing what this steering wheel does in the car. Like, we're complex. Knowing that there's a difference between my thoughts and my feelings and my instincts. My body is giving me different information than my mind is giving me. It'd probably be good to be competent and adequate in knowing what each of those are doing and what gets in the way of that and how we numb that and the fact that that's only reserved right now in 2025 for therapy kind of bums me out. So the answer to that question is keep it, because I would hope that it wouldn't be, it's only a space where we're screwed up and we have to go when we're in crisis, but that this is just as normal as it is, that we build it in, we go to Starbucks. It's brushing our teeth every night. It's like everyone brushes their teeth. It's just what you do. So my hope would be that in 100 years, it would just be something that you do and it would be part of it. We would be a lot happier and healthier, and I think the world's challenges would be greatly ameliorated if we had way more self-aware people who took ownership for their shit. But we don't. It's only people that can afford to go to therapy and afford to actually pay for that kind of self-awareness.
Yeah.
And that, do you know what I mean? Like, I
Absolutely.
have a problem with that. I don't like that.
Yeah. I agree.
But it is the reality.
Another reason why maybe BetterHelp is good for some people too, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. It's like, it's just another, like, let's keep opening up the gate wider and wider to the point where pretty soon it's like, asking the fish, how does the water feel? It's like, what water? It's
Yeah.
just, I'm just in it.
Right.
And that's normalized. But right now, it's not that.
I
So,
agree. It would have been great if it would have been a part of life all along.
all along, can you imagine, like, your son, like, can you imagine? I was like, I have all the tools in the world because I've been talking about sadness and anxiety and overwhelm and relationship problems and my inner world. I have been talking about my inner world since for as long as I can remember.
Yep.
But it's not that. I don't even broach that subject until I'm 38.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it all at once. All of the stuff that's in my inner world, it's like, that's probably not the best thing for best results.
Right. Right. I agree.
But to do that, we have to change that. We're not teaching kids, deep history lessons and spending all of our time and money in those resources. Instead, we're going, how about just feelings class?
Yeah. There's value in that. It hasn't been made a priority. Unfortunately, there could be a whole other podcast episode as to why that is, but it just hasn't been made a priority. And I think a lot of there's just been a focus on the wrong things for so many years as kids have grown up. I mean, I can tell you, are your kids going to need therapy? Well, yeah. I mean, I sent my kid over to you. We do the best we can. We do the best we can, but then in the end, we screw shit up. So that's why we need people like you. And I'm so happy that we had this opportunity to chat. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to me. It's been so good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
To come back. Can you tell us, Brendan, where people can find you and where people can access your services and any offerings that you might have?
Yeah. I think kind of all of it is housed at sessionpsychology.com.
Sessionpsychology.com.
Man, I wish I was more active on social media, and I wish, we have an Instagram and we have all of that, but to get a sense of who we are, how to book sessions, knowing the team, knowing, all of that's kind of at sessionpsychology.com. And you and I were talking earlier, like we've got some podcast episodes, the aptly titled Sessions being the name of the podcast, but we've got a lot of different things here and there, but for the most part, I think all of that's kind of housed right there. So we have it's a group practice, and we're right off Gallatin here in East Nashville. We are a team of 9 therapists. So we got folks that are, some really specialize in doing couples work, some really specialize in the deeper dive of self, and some specialize in areas like just OCD and things that are very real and in my everyday, and really having practical techniques to be able to know what to do with that.
I didn't realize you had 9 people.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
group.
It's great. We continue
Wow.
to grow. I love the idea of boutique, small, and like big impact with a small number.
Yeah.
I've never been a let's go wide and let's grow this thing this way. I'm always been a let's keep growing it this way,
Mm,
like
mm,
whatever that means for us.
mhm.
So I feel
Working within
really lucky.
person's expertise and really doing the work, and you're talking about, oh, but we're not always active on social. We're not always yeah, but it's like people that are out here doing the damn work. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, I mean, I was sick all last week. I didn't post anything about the podcast or anything. I'm
Yeah.
just not.
Yeah.
And what I love to have everything be consistent online and have everything look like, yeah, I would, but I mean, you only have so many hours in the day. And it's like you
You
were
do.
saying to me in the beginning, with the podcast, you said it's an expensive way to spend I don't
Yeah.
remember how you said it. You said
Yeah.
it was like,
Time expensive.
it's time expensive when you have your priorities and what it is that's really important to you in your life right now. Is it worth it? Is it
Yeah.
worth
Yeah.
really focusing in on putting up?
I always sometimes too, I'm like, I don't know if they want to think about their therapist as like really active on social media. Did you know what I mean? I'm like, I want you to use all of your brain power and everything you have for doing the work in the room. Like the idea that you're putting together these, kind of is a little concerning. It's like, I don't know if I don't want some like bro influencer as my therapist. I want kind of like, give me the professional who's like doing all of his stuff in the room.
Brendan's doing a TikTok dance again, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, wait, he's got too much time. Like, hey, he's putting way too much effort into that. Like, put
Oh,
effort into like my trauma.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I feel better about myself knowing,
Yeah. Good. You should.
I know
You
I'm
should.
not
You're putting your time
towing the
and
line.
effort and love where it's actually important. So good for you.
Thank you. I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Just like I always need to hear the things that you say whenever we're together. So Brendan, thank you again so much for coming on. I'd love if you came back again. I feel like we just scratched the surface. There's probably so many other things that we could talk
We
about.
could probably do 10 other podcasts, couldn't
We
we? Yeah.
could. We could.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brendan. And I will have all of this info in the show notes. It's been so good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're so welcome. I'm so glad we got to do this. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Lessons from Your Hairstylist. I hope you found inspiration and actionable insights to embrace your unique beauty and elevate your life. Remember, it's all about taking small steps towards a happier, healthier you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might benefit from it. Together, let's continue unlocking the secrets to living beautifully fulfilled. Until our next appointment, keep your thoughts on your visions, your self-talk kind, and remember to keep your heart open so you don't miss any opportunities waiting for you out there. I'll see you on the next one.